Okay, now. Okay, we'll wait a couple of minutes as people gradually log on.
Good morning, Dante.
Good morning.
I can hear you very well.
You can hear me well? Well?
Yes.
Okay, okay, good. Okay, it's 9:02, so I think we can begin. And the way we're going to proceed this morning, our first session will be another session of the full body awareness, experiencing the whole body while breathing in and breathing out. We'll make that a 40-minute session. Then we'll have a session of walking meditation. And then we'll come to, I will give the background and instructions for the moving to Chittanupassana, to the contemplation of the mind. And then we'll do an extended period of contemplation of the mind. Okay, so let us get into our sitting position. Torso straight and upright. But relaxed, not stiff or rigid. Hands on the lap, right hand over the left, thumbs lightly touching, or if you prefer, you could have the hands on the knees or resting on the thighs. Nose directly above the navel, mouth closed, eyes lightly closed, chin pulled in, a very slight angle. Okay, and first we'll settle into the body, looking for any tense areas and relaxing them. Then we do a few minutes of mindfulness of breathing to sort of sharpen the mind, to increase the mindfulness and concentration. Do it with the attention around the nostrils or upper lip. Okay, so now we are ready to begin the full body awareness. And remember, there are 3 stages in this practice. First, what I call the regional scan, then the rapid sweeping up and down of the body, and then coming into the ideal is the whole body awareness in correlation with the in and out breathing. And I will guide us through the regional scan. Okay, so first begin with the sense of the full body in the sitting position. And now we're going to move through the body region by region and begin with the head. So experiencing my head, I breathe in. Experiencing my head, I breathe out. And remember, the aim is to experience each region in what I call its concrete felt immediacy. Don't make an effort to classify, categorize the experience, though if labels arise, it's quite normal and natural. But just try to feel what is actually manifest in the present moment, and notice the changes that take place in connection with the in-breath and out-breath. So experiencing my head, I breathe in. Experiencing my head, I breathe out. Then we come to the face, the cheeks, the lips, the chin. So experiencing my face, I breathe in. Experiencing my face, I breathe out. You might notice temperature variations, some places warm, others a bit cool. Tingling or vibrational sensations, whatever becomes manifest, just experience it. Okay, now we move to the neck. Experience the neck, I breathe in. Experience the neck, I breathe out. Including the throat with the neck. can feel the throat when you're swallowing the saliva. Okay, then we come to the shoulders. You could try getting both shoulders simultaneously, or you can quickly alternate from one to the other. So experiencing my shoulders, I breathe in, and again I breathe out. Okay, now we come to the upper arms. And to make that area clear and distinct, you could even flex the muscle, tighten the muscle a bit, feel the tension in the muscle. So experiencing the upper arms, I breathe in, I breathe out. And we move to the lower arms. Notice the difference in the sensations there as you breathe in and breathe out. Then the hands, experiencing my hands, I breathe in, I breathe out. And we move the attention back up to the shoulders. And then from the shoulders to the upper part of the torso, the chest, the inside of the upper torso, and the upper part of the back. Experiencing it, this whole region when breathing in, and when breathing out. We move to the lower part of the torso, the abdomen, the abdominal contents, and the lower back. Experience that region, breathing in and breathing out. Then we move to the pelvic region, the hips, the lower abdomen, the pubic region. Experience this region when breathing in, breathing out. Then come to the buttocks. Could feel them against the seat. We feel the difference. There's a left buttock, a right buttock. Feel the difference in the pressure against the seat as you're breathing in and as you're breathing out. Then we come to the thighs. Try to take in both simultaneously. Feel them as you're breathing in and breathing out. Then come to the knees. The lower legs. And the feet. Breathing in, I experience my feet. Breathing out, I experience my feet. Then return to the awareness of the entire body in the sitting position. Then we're going to do a few rounds of sweeping. So with the in-breath, you sweep up from the feet, straight up to the top of the head. With the out-breath, you sweep down from the top of the head, down to the feet, picking up whatever felt experience, whatever sensations become manifest. Don't worry if there are gaps, empty spaces, vague areas. As one practices this over and over, then the mind becomes more and more sensitive to the subtle levels of experience in the body. Okay, so do this now on your own. With the in-breath, you're sweeping up from the feet to the top of the head. With the out-breath, from the top of the head down to the soles of the feet. And breathe at your normal rhythm. Don't artificially extend the breath in order to take in more of the body. Okay, now we're going to move into the whole body awareness. So now we take the whole body simultaneously, following the instructions in the Satipatthana Sutta and the Anapanasati Sutta. Sabakaya pati sangvedi asasamiti sikati. Sabakaya pati sangvedi pasasi samiti sikati. So I train experiencing the whole body. I breathe in, experiencing the whole body. I breathe out. With each in-breath, without each breath, trying to experience as much of the body simultaneously as becomes manifest, as becomes apparent. And you keep the mind soft, gentle, delicate, subtle, receptive, just open to whatever manifests within the body, but alert and attentive to whatever sensations are appearing at whatever levels. And as the mindfulness becomes stronger, then one becomes able to pick up sensations and bodily processes at increasingly more subtle levels. Again, to use a simile I used yesterday, it's like some people are on the other side of a wall talking, and you're trying to hear what they're saying. And so you stand by the door, the closed door, listening, listening, listening. And as you listen, the voices become clearer and clearer. Or maybe it's like using a microscope to look at some specimen under the microscope. And you have to keep on sharpening or increasing the magnification. So maybe you start off with 100 times magnification, then you increase it to 200, then to 300. And so you could see the specimen in finer and finer detail. Okay, so let's practice now in silence. And remember also, before we turn to silence, if the mindfulness starts to become cloudy and the attention starts to waver, what you can do is to return to the sweeping. Do a few sweeps up and down, then come back to the full body awareness. If the mind gets flooded by distracting thoughts, then you can come to a few rounds of mindfulness of breathing, sharpen the mind by attending to the breath, then come back to the full body awareness. And if you find it helpful when doing the full body awareness, you can use the mental note, whole body in for the in-breath, whole body out for the out-breath. But if you prefer not to use a mental note, there's no obligation to do so. Okay, and you can relax now and end the session in the way we usually do by rubbing the palms together, generate some warmth, and rub the palms over the face, top of the head, back of the neck, take in the shoulders, and come down the lower back to the buttocks, massage that area a bit, and then down to the knees. And if you've been sitting cross-legged, then come down to the feet. Okay, we will do now a session of walking meditation. And in this session, I'm going to introduce a new phase to the walking. So far, I've been explaining that we pay attention to, in each step, to bringing the foot forward and putting it down, which I designate by two words, with each with the letter P. Bringing the foot forward, we call pushing, and then putting down, we call placing. So that's pushing, placing. But now we're going to be introducing a third P, which is picking up the foot. So now we have three phases to each step: picking, pushing, and placing. But let each step be done in a natural way. The steps now will be slow in order to pick up the three phases more clearly. You'll be slowing down the walking, but don't artificially break the steps up the way I see some people do. Maybe some meditation teachers teach this way. If you could see my hand, so the way that is done, picking, pushing, placing. We are sort of artificially just dividing up the step, but let it be a sort of natural step of picking up, pushing, placing, picking up, pushing, placing. So you're walking in a natural way, slow, at a slow pace, but distinguishing the three phases. And you don't have to draw a precise line where picking up ends, pushing begins, but just be able to identify in a general way, picking up, bringing forward or pushing, and then putting down, placing. Okay, so let us do the walking meditation. We'll do for a half an hour, 30 minutes. Then when we come back to our seat, then I'll give the instructions for the contemplation of mind, and then we'll do the actual practice of contemplation of mind. Okay, everybody should be back in their seat now. Okay, so now I'm going to give the explanation of Chitta. And for this, it will be useful for me to do a sharing of the screen. Let me just close what's not needed. Okay, so first we'll look at the section on Chitta, contemplation of the mind in the Satipatthana Sutta. So that will be our initial starting point. I think you can see the text. Is it visible? Okay. Okay, for the people who are sitting here in the back, yeah, no, I will read for them. Okay, so the text says, how do you practice contemplation of mind as mind? So here you understand a mind affected by lust, or let's say influenced by lust, or associated with lust as a mind associated with lust, and a mind not associated with lust as a mind not associated with lust. One understands the mind associated with hatred as a mind associated with hatred, a mind not associated with hatred as a mind not associated with hatred. And so for the mind with delusion, mind without delusion, then we have a contracted mind, the distracted mind, the exalted mind, the unexalted mind, the surpassed or surpassable mind, the unsurpassable mind, the concentrated mind, and the liberated mind, in each case with their opposites. So here we have 16 pairs of mental states. But what seems to me to be the case with these later pairs, they seem to be primarily intended to distinguish higher states of mind for those who are already highly skilled in the practice of samadhi. So most of us are still dealing with, more basic problems of the mind. And so I've prepared another little file. Let me open it. I think it's this one. Yeah, showing the kind of states of mind that we're primarily going to be dealing with. So out of the section of the Satipatthana Sutta, I've taken first as the primary basis for understanding the mind connected with the three root defilements, with lust, with hatred, with delusion. And under each heading, I've sort of tried to enumerate various kinds of states of mind connected with that root defilement. And the Pali word raga, which we translate as lust, usually suggests, or at least the English word lust, usually suggests sexual desire, which is a rather maybe too narrow a meaning in this practice. So we should understand raga to have a very broad meaning here. So I've enumerated various kinds of attachment, desire, or lust that could be understood in relation to the mind with lust. So of course, first we have sexual lust or sexual desire, then desire for the five pleasant sense objects, desire to enjoy beautiful forms, sounds, odors, delicious food, and pleasant tactile sensations. Then we have more psychological forms of desire, desire for fame, honor, praise, and wealth, desire for power over others, attachment to one's loved ones, which can be, a quite necessary part of everyday life since one has to have some desire to further the well-being of one's spouse and children. But if it becomes too strong a desire, too strong an attachment, then it's something to be weakened and overcome. Then we have desire for delicious food, craving, and this is in case of addicts, the craving for alcoholic drinks and drugs. And one could probably expand on this list more and more. We don't have to be all inclusive. And probably if we have any people on this retreat who are psychologists or psychotherapists, they could probably think of more forms than I can. Okay, so we have mind. The second unwholesome root is the mind with hatred. So here I've enumerated different variations on hatred. So we have raw hatred, hatred in its most naked and destructive form. Then we have persistent hostility, when over time you build up a kind of hostile feeling towards another person, so that even the sound of that person's voice, the sight of that person causes ill will to arise in the mind. Ah, that's another one we should put here, ill will. Then annoyance, irritation. For example, even when we're doing meditation, and I mean, this is what I feel. If some visitors to the monastery start passing by outside and I hear their voices chatting, then I think, how did those people get in here? Why are they here? Somebody get them out. So that's annoyance, irritation, resentment. Again, this is real similar to persistent hostility. Envy and jealousy, when somebody has special good qualities and virtues and you wish you had those qualities, or some people are friends and you resent their being, you think, why should he be friends with her? I want him to be friends with me. And bitterness, anger, you could even put violence or the violent mind, belligerence, and so on. You could expand this. Okay, then the mind with delusion. Here under here, I have put a few items like this kind of skeptical or cynical doubt, a kind
I'm
of
sorry, Bante.
excuse
Sorry
me.
to interrupt you. I don't know if you like to share your file to the students or you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't I share that? Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me. It was my own ignorance. Okay. Okay, so we have here cynical doubt. The investigative doubt is encouraged in Buddhism, but this is the kind of skeptical or cynical doubt that's not willing to accept anything on trust. Wrong views, idle speculation. Then under this heading, I also put inordinate pride. Of course, there's a certain kind of healthy pride, but this is the inflated ego pride. Yeah, we'll call this ego pride. And conceit, vanity, haughtiness or arrogance, so that you swell with pride and then you look down on others. Then we have ethno-nationalism, racism, religious dogmatism, and so on. And these qualities, like ethno-nationalism and racism, can sort of also include an element of hatred, even religious dogmatism as well. So these cover the first three unwholesome types of mind mentioned in the Satipatthana Sutta. Then we have the next pair are two unwholesome states. One is called the constricted mind, or I translate here the cramped mind, and the other is the distracted mind. So the cramped mind, so this is a mind that's constricted, tight, tense, and rigid, or it can be a mind that's dull and heavy, a mind that's, well, I have rigid, unwieldy. It would include, among the five hindrances, dullness and drowsiness, also translated as sloth and torpor. So that is the cramped mind. And then the counterpart of that, the unwholesome counterpart, here it's the distracted mind, or here I use the scattered mind. So this is the mind accompanied by agitation or with restlessness, with worry, with regrets, and so on. So those are the pairs from the Satipatthana Sutta that we're going to take, the first three, and then the cramped mind and the scattered mind. But then from the higher states of mind, we're going to take the concentrated mind, which is the mind that's well focused on the object. We don't have to think of the concentrated mind as a mind that's in deep absorption or jhana, but just when the mind is steady, stable, and well focused on the object. And then the opposite of that is called in the Satipatthana Sutta the unconcentrated mind. Unconcentrated mind. But I'm going to sort of render this by another term, which I found in my own experience too often, the drifting mind. So the drifting mind is a little bit different from the distracted mind or the scattered mind. The scattered mind is a mind which is sort of restless, agitated, running from object to object with a lot of energy. Whoops. Whereas the drifting mind is sort of moving along at a slow and steady pace, but instead of focusing on the object, it's drifting from one thing to another. It's sort of like I imagine the difference between the scattered mind and the drifting mind. The scattered mind is like maybe you see the Wall Street executive who's got out from the subway and he's a little bit late for work, and so he's rushing to get to his office, just even pushing people out of the way. I have to get to the office, I have to get to the office. I'm late, I'm late. He's looking at his clock. I'm late, have to get there. The boss will yell at me, and so on. So that's the scattered mind, the distracted mind. Whereas the drifting mind is like the person who has to get to the office at a certain time, but instead of walking steadily to the office, they see something in the shop window. Ah, that's nice. Walk a little further, look in the next shop window. And so they go on just drifting from one thing to another, not getting to their office on time. Okay, so those are different states of mind. And then it occurred to me that we could also look at the mind from the standpoint of processes or operations. And I just set down some of these operations this morning as I was reflecting on this. And again, I'm not trained in psychology, so there might be professional psychologists here who have more accurate ideas than I do. about the workings of the mind. But this is, so, I think, things that we will encounter in a meditative experience, as I do. So I have one is, you see, when the mind moves away from the object, usually it's moving in two directions, either backwards towards the past or forward towards the future. So we have first the mind dwelling on the past, that is, the mind indulging in memories which might be accurate or inaccurate, because often we construct false pictures of the past, false narratives, and we believe them to be real, to be true. And so when the mind's dwelling on the past, I've taken a few of the unwholesome examples. So we have sorrow, sadness, grief, different sort of stages of sadness, the mind full of distress and regret. Actually, I put distress twice. Or regret, remorse, guilt over things done or undone in the past. And you could see here what's interesting. We have a distinction in the Satipatthana system of Vedana or feeling and Chitta or state of mind. But sorrow, sadness, grief, technically they are considered feelings, but they're also feelings that affect or infect the state of mind. So when sorrow, sadness, or grief arises and we observe it, we're observing this as a state of mind, but we're also observing the feeling. So Chittanupassana and Vedananupassana here tend to merge when contemplating that kind of state of mind. Okay, then we have, on the more positive note, we have happy memories or joyful memories, memories of things of which we were fond, and another kind of memory, which is almost a blend of happiness and sadness, is nostalgia. When we're thinking how wonderful those things were in the past, but there's a kind of regret that now we don't have them now. So I think of maybe my happy childhood playing football in the streets of Brooklyn, and now all of that is gone. So that's a kind of nostalgia. So that's mind dwelling on the past. Then we have mind projecting into the future. So just some examples. We sit and we're imagining what's going to happen in the future. And then our imaginations about the future can be driven by desire, even craving, or by a kind of passive hoping. I hope this will happen. I hope that will happen. Or an expectation. This is what's going to happen. This is what I expect to happen. And those states can be motivated or driven by greed, by raga. Then there are some states which are based upon or driven by aversion. You include here fear, anxiety, worry about the future. And then also based on delusion, we could have just idle imagination, idle imaginings about the future. Or maybe we could put some kind of idle expectations about the future. Probably you could expand this, but we're not here to write a textbook on psychology, but just to take a broad overview of some of the states of mind that we'll be encountering as we engage in this practice. And you don't have to note all of these, but just, I think you'll be able to identify the states of mind that arise as we engage in the practice. Okay, now, oh, I see that was in the chat was just the same question that Katie asked me. Okay, now we come to the key question. How do we actually practice contemplation of the mind? And I wanted to undertake this practice during my retreat, actually earlier. And what I found is that in the Nikayas, we don't actually find a specific method given for the contemplation of the mind, a particular technique of how to undertake the practice. We just have a list of states of mind to recognize whether they're present or whether they're absent. So I had to invent my own technique. So this is the way I went about it, go about it, and this is what I'll be teaching here. What we do when we sit and start off with a little mindfulness of breathing, but then we bring into the mind one word. And what is that one word we bring into the mind? The word is mind. So we make the object of our meditation the word mind, and we observe, we repeat that word, we verbalize it within our mind, and we observe the word mind as we are mentally verbalizing it. And we try to focus on that word mind and retain the word mind in the mind. And when we are doing this, we are actually at the same time observing the mind, because we can see the mind as having two facets, two aspects. We could call this the subjective aspect or the observing aspect, and the observed aspect, the objective aspect. So we are making the objective aspect the mind itself, which we are focusing on by taking the word mind as the object. And with the word mind as the object, we are also able to observe what states of mind occur. And the task is to keep on watching the word mind repeatedly over and over. And I compare this using the word mind as we keep on focusing on the word mind. We go deeper and deeper into the mind. And I compare this, I like to use some images. Okay, first to observe the word mind as it keeps on popping up, as we keep on mentally repeating it. I imagine there's a kind of, I've seen this, I think, in the past, a kind of fountain or a little machine out of which bubbles come. And you might be standing by that fountain and you watch the bubble come out from the mouth of the fountain. And so, in a similar way, with your observing mind, you watch the word mind arise and take shape within your mind. And you do this repeatedly, just like from the fountain, there comes up one bubble after another bubble after another bubble, and you're watching each bubble come up from the fountain and float away. And so you're watching each occurrence of the word mind take shape within your mind, and then it ends, and then comes the next verbalization or formulation of the word mind. And so you do this over and over and over. And as you're doing so, your mind is getting more and more concentrated on itself, on the mind itself. And in this way, you're going deeper and deeper into the mind. And I compare this to, it's like we have a piece of ground, piece of the earth, and underneath that ground is a precious treasure, and you're using a shovel to shovel away the soil in order to arrive at that precious treasure, that source of maybe diamonds or jewels deep within the earth. And so we could say that maybe the Bodhi Dhatu, the factor or the element of enlightenment, or the Vimutti Dhatu, the realm of liberation, is deep at the base of the mind. And we are using that word mind to dig deeper and deeper into the mind. And thoughts will start to arise, naturally will arise, little thoughts, half articulated thoughts, random thoughts will start popping up. But one just doesn't pay attention to them, one just puts them aside, lays them down, drops them, and goes on observing the word mind, mentally verbalizing the word mind, and observing the mind that is verbalizing the word mind. But what is going to happen, I mean, if you have really strong spiritual faculties, then you can go into a samadhi of mind observing the mind, and that's wonderful. But I don't have that ability, and maybe very, very few people do. But you're going to find what's happening while you're trying to focus on the mind, other states of mind are going to start popping up. That's where the, this template of mental states comes into play, this kind of map of the mind. And before long, you think you should be focusing on the mind itself, but then you're lost maybe in thoughts of desire, even thoughts of sensual lust, craving for food, thoughts about your reputation, whether others are praising you or criticizing you, thoughts of maybe anger, resentment, memories, bitter memories, jealousy, and so on. All of these unwholesome states will come up. So when these thoughts come up, when you notice them, you just identify the thought and drop it, and then come back to observing the mind itself, focused on the word mind. But if a mental state becomes very strong and overpowering, what you can do is dance with that mental state a little bit, play with it. You have to be careful not to be carried away with it. You have to be in charge. But let us say desire, this is a little risky with sexual desire, especially for monastic, but some other kind of desire or craving comes into the mind. You could just watch it come in and sort of examine it, look into its energy. And then as you look into it, it will become a little weaker, and then you could push it away and come back to observing the mind. Similarly, with anger or ill will, again, one has to be careful not to be carried away. But if some persistent, say, resentment comes into the mind, you could look into that state, see the color of the state, what it feels like, the texture of that state, experience it for a little while. And then as you do so, it will sort of fade, loses its energy, and then you can push it away and come back to direct observation of the mind. And the same with any other state. The ideal, if the state is weak or in an elementary state, just drop it and come back contemplating mind, mind, mind. But if the state becomes strong and it sort of drives away your focus on the mind, then you focus on that mental state. Again, you look at its color, its flavor, its texture until it becomes weaker, and then drop it and come back to direct observation of the mind. Okay, so that is the introduction to this practice. And maybe at this point, let us do the practice itself. We'll take the questions in the afternoon. And I'll do this a little guided. It doesn't need this extensive explanation. Whoops. Yeah, I want to end. Okay. Okay, you don't have to have the list of mental states that I just mentioned in front of you. Okay, so let us take our sitting position. So we could do 30, 40, we could do this as a 40-minute session. And you begin with a few minutes of Anapanasati to sharpen the mind. Okay, so go to the, okay, start with the mindfulness of breathing, settle in. Okay, now you bring the word mind into your mind, observing the word again as if you were looking at a bubble fountain. And so you're repeating the word mentally and watching the word take shape in the mind and then stop each time because you're repeating over and over. So it's just like the bubbles from the bubble fountain emerging from the fountain, rising up and bursting. And so you're looking more and more sharply to see the origination of the word mind within the mind. Just continue with that practice. If little thoughts come up, you know, weak, inconsequential thoughts, you just keep on dropping them over and over and coming back to the word mind, mind, trying to observe it as as consistently as possible, each occurrence of the word mind within the mind. And when any strong or dominant thought arises, you identify it, you put the name on it, the label, And then if you can, you just drop it and return to observing the word mind. Again, thinking of that word mind as being like your shovel for digging through the ground to arrive at the precious treasure of Bodhi or Vimutti, enlightenment or liberation at the bottom of the mind. Okay, I think now you could continue on your own in silence. If you find that the mind is drifting too much or is overwhelmed by sort of currents of distracted thoughts, then you could return to the mindfulness of breathing, to a few minutes of mindfulness of breathing, and then return to focus, the direct focusing on the mind itself, using the word mind as the focus of observation. Okay, you can relax now, and we end the session in the usual way. Okay, so we will break now for the meal, and we will return at 1:50 Eastern Time. And in that period, we could do a review of this method and then take some questions. And then through the afternoon, we'll be alter alternating between this method, contemplation of the mind, and the walking meditation. Okay, so we could stand and just do 3 half bows to the Buddha. Okay, half bow, 1,
One bow,
2,
second bow,
3.
three bow. Bow to Bande.